The Diablo 4 dev Campfire chat has just ended, and the Blizzard team had a lot to say about the changes coming to Diablo 4, and it looks like it's coming very soon. Barbarian and Sorc changes, stash tabs, mob density, XP adjustments, and much more. We got a lot to talk about today, so let's begin. So yeah, the dev Campfire chat just ended and they had a lot to talk about. First, I wanted to talk about the changes coming for the Barb and Sorc. And according to the dev team, the Barb as well as the Sorc is going to be receiving a buff in the next coming few weeks. The team acknowledges that the Barb and the Sorc isn't in a particularly good place, and they want to make some changes to adjust it and make sure that it feels more in line with all the other classes. But yeah, it does look like they do acknowledge that the Barb and the Sorc is in a very bad spot, and they're going to be making some changes about that. When it comes to the resistances, because I know the Sorc is very resistant reliant and resistances doesn't work correctly, they did say in season 2 there's going to be some rework, a full-fledged rework of how the resistances work in the game. So for now, as far as defenses go, Sorc is probably still in the worst spot, and they are going to be looking at it, but as for now, Sorc is just going to have to suffer until these changes are made. Now, one good thing that was talked about in the Campfire chat was that there's going to be some changes to the density of the mobs in the game. One big talking point for the community for as far as I can remember has been about the mob density in the game, and the dev team definitely heard us. In the coming patch 1111, there's going to be some Nightmare Dungeon density increases, and they said it was substantial, not just small. So we should see some massive changes when that comes to that. As well as the Hell Tides. They said it's not going to be as substantial as the mob changes in terms of density that we get from the Nightmare Dungeons, but should be substantial enough that you see a noticeable difference. Alongside this is going to adjust the XP as well, and then they're going to really readjust the XP overall across the board. I think the team did feel that more times than not, a lot of players were getting boosted and kind of sitting at the front and waiting to get boosted. They are trying to alleviate that. Honestly, I'm not sure why, but they did say that they did go a little bit overboard on the changes, and they will be readjusting the XP to some extent. On top of this, they did talk about the stash tab. The stash tabs has again been a point of contention, and then they said that they will be adding more stash tabs. Now, the amount that they said they would be adding is a total of 1, which was a little bit weird. I would have liked to see more, but there are some adjustments coming with the stash tabs, and this actually extends out to the elixirs as well. They're going to get more stack sizes on the elixirs so that players can have more to just use. Now, ultimately, the team did talk about the vulnerability changes and how things were pretty much nerfed really heavily. They didn't go into specifics on the logistics on what changes are going to come with like damage adjustments, but they did say that they heard us and that they understand the changes did affect a lot of the classes disproportionately, basically. And they want to make sure that whenever they do future adjustments that it doesn't just completely hurt, and most importantly, they won't be doing any adjustments of this scale where it's mostly heavily nerfs. There was a lot of talks about the philosophy on why they did it. There's talks that they don't want to do this again, but I do feel like there was a massive lack of, here is how we're going to fix it in the future, and the direct changes that are going to affect it. I didn't feel like there was a lot of that in the dev stream, unfortunately. They said that they will be doing that and making those changes, but that's yet to be seen. Now, I know earlier we did talk about the mob density in the Nightmare Dungeons, but there is actually quite a few other changes that's coming with the Nightmare Dungeons and just the general gameplay. I think the most notable about Nightmare Dungeons is they're going to be adjusting the difficulty down from 100 to basically where 70 stands right now. So currently there's a lot of players pushing towards 100. And whenever you push towards 100, you get one shot. There's very specific builds that work. In a lot of cases, they don't like the fact that it forces you into a very particular playstyle versus having more viability in other styles. So basically the idea is to adjust for whatever is currently 70 in Nightmare Dungeons is what 100 is, and obviously things below that will fall in line. Now for me, this is a little bit concerning because I don't want it to be too easy, but I do understand on the other hand that 100 is, well, really difficult and is really just getting one shot. I'm not sure how the team is going to balance this, but hopefully it's a good balance and it's delicate and they make sure that it's not just making it easy where you just cruise through the entire thing. Now, with that said, they did acknowledge that players do like a challenge, and with that change, they do plan to add some future in-game content for players who are looking to basically challenge themselves in place of where that 100 nightmare dungeon previously was. They didn't really go into specifics on exactly what this will be, what kind of in-game content this will be, but there is some changes coming, so we'll have to see. Now, while we're talking about builds, one thing they did make a big point about was the respec cost being dropped down to 40% of the current value that it takes to respec. They didn't say anything about Paragon, unfortunately, but in the coming changes, which should be within like a couple of weeks, honestly, expect to see respec costs down by 40%, and the team is also in the works of making some loadout changes so that you can actually have a loadout. Finally, I do want to talk about some more of the core gameplay functions that should be coming in the near future. And the first one is they acknowledge the CC adjustments that needs to be made. They have noticed that a lot of people are dying disproportionately to certain effects, mainly being CC locked. A lot of mobs that have a lot of different CC effects that will basically stun lock you. They have observed this and want to make changes. They also acknowledge that they are aware of the charging creatures, the rhinos, the fat running guys, as well as the on-death effects that linger for about 5 seconds before you can actually play the game. They also acknowledge those things being too powerful. So in the near future, these things should be changed to where they're a little bit more fair and balanced towards the player, so that players aren't dying so heavily to them, because again, they have noticed players are dying to these things significantly more than other mechanics. And obviously being CC locked by a spider or a white mob that can just smack you and stun lock you is not a healthy place for the game. Now, the final thing I did want to talk about was the fact that they did say they were going to be reworking the aspects for some classes, more specifically targeted towards Barb and Sorc. To my understanding, they really wanted to bring up some of the aspects that are underutilized and try to make those more viable. For me, I don't really typically like that philosophy, because it feels like they want to force us into playing specific styles and types, as to where, in my opinion, a lot of those aspects are actually just bad. Their core functionality is not particularly good, and I'm not a fan of that. But they did say that they are going to be looking to rework some aspects as well as some of the uniques, so that they're a little bit more fitting towards certain playstyles and whatnot. I think this is actually more ideal, rather than bringing up some of the aspects that are just not as good. I mean, that's good too, but I do, want to see aspects changed. I want to see legendary changes. Things like Gore's having attack speed on it on a whirlwind based item. It's just silly. So these changes are like something that should be happening soon. Hopefully they can really get some diversity in the aspects and change some of them so that they actually feel usable, because there are a lot, at least from my perspective at the Barbarian main, that just aren't usable at all. Now, with all that said, that was pretty much all that was important in my opinion for the dev live stream. There was some other things. They took a lot of questions, some really good questions, some Papega questions as usual, but for the grand scheme of things, I think this was a great live stream. I think they did talk about a lot of things. Obviously, we got to wait for action, because talking and action is not exactly the same thing. I did want to say one other thing. This isn't confirmed or anything, but the way that Joey Pior really was talking about the malignant hearts, it did seem to me that he really feels like these things are solving some issues. For example, they talked about minions being kind of weak and then having to recast it, and someone in the chat talked about, well, hey, the minions need some love, and his response was something to the effect of, well, we made these malignant hearts to help you with the summoning. For those who are playing Necromancer and don't know, there's like a heart that makes it so that you can have it auto summon a minion for you should your be out of minions. Now, what's interesting about this ideal is the way the team kind of talked about it previously. It seemed like they weren't going to really add the malignant season to the game. And whenever he talks about this being a solution to that problem, it makes me think that they're attempting to possibly add malignant as a permanent thing in the game. I think it would be good, because I don't think that the power that malignant give is that high that it feels like too much for the player. But that's just something I'm speculating. There's no confirmation there, but from what the conversation was, to me, it feels like there's going to be the malignant season being added to the game as a permanent feature. And to me, I think that's actually good. Anyway, that is pretty much it for the video. I think there was a lot of good in this, a lot we talked about. Feel free to leave your comments down below of your thoughts of the Campfire chat. Are you buying it? Do you think these are good changes? What do you think the dev team gonna do? Personally, I actually love everything I saw on the dev stream, but I would like to see more action and a little bit more explanation on the changes, especially the nerfs. Anyway, don't forget to like as well as subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.